Hey guys, tonight we're going to slow things down and sit with a story that matters. Meet Maya Jefferson, a 32-year-old black waitress in Seattle whose steady hands and sharp mind carry her through long shifts at a sleek bistro. Beneath her apron lies a sociology degree set aside to keep her younger siblings afloat after life's hard turns. She faces scorn that cuts deeper than most realize, yet her quiet strength holds firm. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe, but only if stories like this truly move you. Comment your city and the time you're watching. Now close your eyes or don't. It's your choice. Either way, you're about to witness something real. The bistro hums under the weight of a Friday lunch rush, its polished wood floors reflecting the soft amber glow of pendant lights. Seattle's downtown pulses outside a gray drizzle streaking the floor-to-ceiling windows, but inside, the air is warm, thick with the scent of roasted garlic and fresh sourdough. Maya Jefferson moves through the chaos with a dancer's grace, her black sneakers silent against the hardwood, her tightly coiled hair pulled into a neat bun that catches the light. Her apron crisp, despite hours of work, clings to her frame as she balances a tray of sparkling water and lemon wedges. At 32, she's mastered the art of invisibility, smiling just enough to keep guests comfortable, her almond-shaped eyes scanning tables for empty plates or raised hands. But beneath that calm, there's a fire banked, but never extinguished, fueled by years of being underestimated. Table 12 sits near the window. A group of 4 in tailored blazers and expensive watches, their laughter sharp and performative. Victor Langston, 60, holds court at the head, his silver hair slicked back, his voice booming over the clink of glasses. A tech CEO with a reputation for bulldozing competitors, he leans back in his chair, one hand gesturing as if the room belongs to him. His colleagues, a younger man with a nervous smile, a woman with a sleek bob, and an older man scrolling his phone, nod along their attention tethered to Victor's orbit. Maya approaches her tray steady and sets down their waters with a soft, "Good afternoon, folks." Victor doesn't look up, just waves a hand. "Make it quick," he says, eyes on his phone. "We've got deals to close." She nods, unfazed, her pen poised over her notepad. "Today's special is pan-seared halibut with a citrus beurre blanc," she says, her voice clear, professional. The woman with the bob, Ms. Caruso, glances up, her Italian accent crisp. "Is the halibut wild-caught?" she asks. Maya's smile widens slightly, a flicker of warmth. "Yes, ma'am, sourced from the Pacific Sustainable Catch." Ms. Caruso nods impressed and switches to Italian, rapid and fluid, asking about the sauce's ingredients. Without missing a beat, Maya responds in perfect Italian, her words smooth as the bistro's linen napkins, explaining the sauce's balance of lemon zest and tarragon. The exchange is brief, natural, but it shifts the air. Ms. Caruso's eyes brighten. The younger man, Ethan, raises an eyebrow. Victor, though, snaps his head up, his smirk sharp as a blade. "Well, look at that." He drawls loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. A waitress with tricks. Maya's hand pauses on her notepad, her expression still polite, but her shoulders stiffen, a subtle tell of the weight his words carry. The bistro's hum falters for a moment, a few diners glancing over. "Just doing my job, sir," she says, her voice even, but there's a tremor beneath it. Not fear, but something fiercer held in check. Victor leans forward, elbows on the table, his eyes glinting with amusement. "Stick to serving, sweetheart," he says, his tone dripping with condescension. "Leave the fancy talk to the professionals." The words land like a slap, their racial and class undertones unmistakable. Maya's jaw tightens, but she doesn't flinch. Her eyes meet his for a fraction of a second, a silent challenge, then drop back to her notepad. "What can I get started for you?" she asks, her voice a study in restraint. The younger man. Ethan shifts uncomfortably, his fork tapping his plate. Ms. Caruso frowns, her lips parting as if to speak, but Victor barrels on, ordering a steak rare and don't mess it up. Maya nods, scribbling her knuckles, whitening around the pen. As she turns to leave, Victor mutters loud enough for the table to hear bet she practiced that Italian line all week. Her steps falter just for a moment, her shadow stretching long across the polished floor, heavy with unspoken resolve. She doesn't turn back, but the air around her crackles with something unspoken, something waiting. In the kitchen, she inputs the order, her fingers steady on the touch screen, but her breath comes a little faster. The head chef, Javier, a wiry man with tattoos peeking from his sleeves, glances over. "You good, Maya?" he asks, his voice low. She nods, forcing a half smile. "Just another ego," she says, but her eyes betray a flicker of hurt, quickly buried. Javier snorts, flipping a pan. "Let me overcook his steak." Maya shakes her head, her smile genuine now, but faint. "Let the food speak," she says, grabbing a fresh tray. Back in the dining room, the bistro's rhythm resumes, but the tension lingers, a quiet undercurrent beneath the clatter of plates. Maya moves between tables, refilling water, clearing dishes, her movements precise, but her mind elsewhere. She thinks of her younger sister Lena, studying late at their cramped apartment, and her brother Jamal, who's finally staying out of trouble at 16. She thinks of the sociology degree gathering dust in a drawer the late nights, writing papers on systemic bias, the dreams of working in global aid. Life had other plans, but Maya carries those dreams like a talisman tucked close to her heart. At table 12, Victor's voice rises again, recounting a deal he closed in Madrid, his Spanish clumsy but loud. Impressed the hell out of them, he brags, and Ethan laughs a little too eagerly. Maya, passing by, catches the tail end, her lips pressing into a thin line. She knows Spanish too better than Victor's bluster, but she says nothing, her silence a shield. Some truths linger waiting to be unveiled. The bistro's lights dim slightly as the afternoon fades, casting long shadows that seem to follow her, heavy with the weight of words unsaid. Victor's smirk, the casual dismissal in his tone. The assumption that her apron defines her. They're not new, but they sting all the same. She's faced this before in college classrooms, in job interviews, in the way some guests avoid her eyes. But today, something feels different, like a storm gathering on the horizon, quiet but undeniable. As she clears a nearby table, a busboy, Carlos, leans in, his voice a whisper. "That guy's a piece of work," he says, nodding toward Victor. Maya's lips twitch, not quite a smile. "Aren't they all?" she replies, but her eyes flick back to table 12, where Victor's laughter rings out again, sharp and grating. She straightens, smoothing her apron, and heads back into the fray. Her heart a steady drumbeat of resolve. The bistro's warmth wraps around her, but so does the weight of Victor's words, and in that moment, Maya knows this shift won't end quietly. Not today. The motif of shadows weaves through the scene, her shadow on the floor, the shadow of prejudice in Victor's words, the shadow of her dreams deferred. It's a quiet thread tying her steps to something larger, something that will unfold in time. For now she moves forward, her tray a shield, her silence a weapon, and the bistro hums on, unaware of the storm brewing in its midst. The bistro's chandeliers cast a golden glow, their light fracturing across wine glasses and polished silverware. But the warmth does little to soften the chill settling over Maya Jefferson's shoulders. She weaves through the crowded dining room, her black sneakers whispering against the hardwood, a tray of steaming appetizers balanced in her hands. The lunch rush in Seattle's downtown bistro is relentless plates, clatter voices overlap, and the faint hum of jazz fights to be heard. Maya 32 moves with practiced ease, her tightly coiled hair catching glints of light, her apron a second skin after years of long shifts. But beneath her calm exterior, Victor Langston's earlier taunt, "Stick to serving sweetheart," burns like a coal, its racial and class barbs lodged deep. Her almond eyes scan the room, always alert, but now they carry a quiet storm, a flicker of resolve that wasn't there an hour ago. At table 12, Victor holds court, his silver hair gleaming under the lights, his voice a hammer striking every syllable. The 60-year-old CEO leans back, one arm draped over his chair, recounting a story of outsmarting a rival in San Francisco. His colleagues, Ethan, the nervous junior exec, Ms. Caruso, the sharp-eyed investor, and Mr. Patel, the distracted consultant, nod along, their smiles tight. Victor's words are loud, meant to dominate, but Maya feels their weight differently, each one a reminder of the box he's tried to shove her into. She approaches with their appetizers, setting down plates of bruschetta and calamari with a soft, "Here you are." Victor barely glances up, waving a hand. "About time," he mutters, then turns to Ms. Caruso. "You believe the service here slow as molasses." Maya's fingers tighten around the tray, her knuckles paling, but her face remains a mask of professionalism. The slight catches Ethan's eye. He shifts his fork, pausing mid-air, but says nothing. Ms. Caruso's lips thin, her gaze flicking to Maya, then away. The injustice isn't new. Maya's felt it in the way some guests avoid her eyes, in the assumptions that her apron means she's less. But Victor's brazenness stings, a public dismissal meant to shrink her. She steps back, her shadow stretching across the floor, long and heavy, a silent testament to the weight she carries. "Anything else for now?" She asks, her voice steady, but there's a tremor beneath it, a current of defiance held in check. Victor smirks, leaning forward. "Yeah, don't mess up the main course," he says, his tone sharp with condescension. "You can handle that, right?" The words drip with racial undertones, the assumption that her blackness, her role, limits her. Maya's jaw clenches, but she nods, her eyes meeting his for a fleeting moment. "I've got it," she says, her voice low, controlled. She turns, her steps measured, but the air around her crackles, charged with something unspoken. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled, and Maya feels them stirring a quiet pulse beneath her skin. In the kitchen, she inputs the table's main course, orders, her fingers swift on the touchscreen, but her breath comes unevenly. Javier, the head chef, glances over his spatula, pausing. "That guy still giving you grief?" he asks, his voice gruff but kind. Maya exhales, forcing a half smile. Just flexing his ego, she says, but her eyes betray a flicker of weariness. Javier snorts, tossing a towel over his shoulder. Want me to accidentally char his steak? Maya's smile widens, a brief spark. Tempting, but no, she says. I'll handle him. Javier nods respect in his eyes and turns back to the stove, the sizzle of searing meat filling the air. Back in the dining room, the bistro's rhythm surges. Waiters dart between tables, glasses clink, and the jazz shifts to a slower, mournful tune. Maya moves with purpose, refilling water at table 10, clearing plates at table 14. But her mind is on table 12. Victor's voice carries now, mocking a colleague's pitch from earlier. Amateur hour, he scoffs, and Ethan laughs too loud, too eager. Maya catches the exchange as she passes her lips pressing into a thin line. She knows men like Victor, men who think volume equals power, who assume their titles shield them from accountability. She's faced them before in college seminars, where professors overlooked her raised hand in job interviews where her degree was met with raised eyebrows. But today, his words feel like a gauntlet daring her to respond. She thinks of her sister Lena, 19, hunched over textbooks in their small apartment, dreaming of law school. She thinks of Jamal, 16, who's finally found his footing after a rough year. Maya's sacrifices, her degree on hold, her dreams deferred, are for them a promise carved in late nights and double shifts. That thought steadies her, a quiet anchor. She smooths her apron, her fingers brushing the fabric, and heads back to table 12 with a fresh bread basket. The motif of shadows clings to her, her shadow on the wall, the shadow of Victor's prejudice, the shadow of her own resilience growing sharper with each step. As she sets the basket down, Victor's eyes flick to her, his smirk returning. You're still here, he says loud enough to draw a glance from a nearby table. Thought you'd be practicing your little Italian act in the back. The jab lands, its racial edge cutting deeper, now a challenge to her intelligence, her place. Ms. Caruso's fork pauses, her expression tightening, but she says nothing. Ethan looks down, his cheeks flushing. Maya's heart pounds, but her face remains calm, her eyes locking onto Victor's. I don't need practice, she says, her voice soft but firm, a blade wrapped in velvet. Anything else you need? The question hangs, a quiet dare. Victor leans back, his smirk widening. Oh, we'll see what you can handle, he says, his tone a mix of amusement and menace. Surprise me. The words are a trap, a test, and Maya feels their weight. The room's eyes subtly turning toward her. She nods, her smile tight, and walks away, her shadow trailing her like a cloak. The bistro's lights flicker briefly, a storm brewing outside, and the air feels heavier, charged with the promise of something shifting. Carlos, the busboy, catches her eye as she passes, his expression a mix of concern and admiration. You okay? He whispers. Maya nods, her lips curving faintly. I'm always okay, she says, but her eyes tell a different story, one of fire banked but ready to flare. In the back, she pauses by the service station, her hands gripping the edge of the counter, her breath steadying. The bistro's noise fades for a moment, and she feels the weight of every glance, every assumption, every time she's been reduced to her apron. But she also feels something else, a spark, a certainty that Victor's game is one she can play and win. She straightens her shadow sharp against the wall and heads back into the dining room, her resolve a quiet drumbeat. The storm outside rumbles, and inside Maya knows the moment is coming, the one where shadows give way to light. The Seattle bistro pulses with the rhythm of a late lunch, its chandeliers casting fractured light across linen tablecloths, the air thick with the scent of truffle oil and brewing coffee. Outside, the city's drizzle has thickened to a steady rain streaking the tall windows and blurring the gray skyline. Maya Jefferson, 32, navigates the crowded dining room. Her black sneakers silent, her apron taut against her frame. Her tightly coiled hair pulled into a neat bun, gleams under the lights, but her almond eyes carry a guarded intensity, a quiet storm brewing since Victor Langston's taunts began. His words, "Stick to serving, sweetheart, and surprise me," echo in her mind their racial and class venom, a weight she's carried too long. Yet Maya moves with unwavering grace, her tray steady, her smile a practiced shield. At table 12, Victor Langston, 60, leans forward, his silver hair catching the light, his voice a battering ram. The tech CEO's stories dominate tales of outwitting rivals closing million-dollar deals, each word meant to cement his authority. His colleagues Ethan, the jittery junior exec, Ms. Caruso, the Italian investor with a sharp gaze, and Mr. Patel, the consultant lost in his phone offer, tepid nods, their attention fraying. Victor's earlier mockery of Maya has left a residue of tension that lingers in Ethan's fidgeting hands and Ms. Caruso's tightened lips. Maya approaches with their main courses, setting down plates of seared halibut and ribeye with a soft, "Enjoy your meal." Victor glances up, his smirk sharp. "Took long enough," he says, loud enough to turn heads. "Hope you didn't get lost back there." Maya's fingers tighten briefly on the tray, her knuckles paling, but her face remains calm, her eyes meeting his for a fleeting moment. "Everything's prepared to order, sir," she says, her voice smooth, controlled. The slight catches Ms. Caruso's attention. She sets down her fork, her expression unreadable. Ethan shifts his eyes, darting to Maya, then away. The injustice stings. Maya's felt this dismissal before in the way some guests assume her blackness. Her apron defines her limits, but Victor's public scorn is a gauntlet daring her to falter. Her shadow stretches across the hardwood, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths, a silent promise of something shifting. Victor cuts into his steak, then pauses, his eyes narrowing. "You speak that Italian pretty well," he says, his tone deceptively casual. "Let's see what else you've got." He leans back, crossing his arms, his smirk widening. "How's your Spanish, or is that too much for you?" The challenge lands like a spark in dry grass, its racial undertones unmistakable. The table falls silent. Ms. Caruso's eyebrows lift and Ethan's fork clatters against his plate. Nearby diners glance over the bistro's hum, dipping for a moment. Maya stands still, her tray balanced, her posture steady, but her heart pounds a drumbeat of defiance. "I speak Spanish," she says, her voice low, measured. "What would you like me to say?" Victor's eyes gleam, sensing a game. "Oh, I'll make it easy," he says, his voice loud, performative. He tosses out a Spanish phrase, clumsy and mispronounced. "El éxito es para los fuertes." Success is for the strong. His colleagues shift uncomfortably. Ms. Caruso's lips part, but she stays silent. Victor leans forward, his smirk a challenge. "Go on, translate it," he says. "Or is that above your pay grade?" The words cut deep, a public attempt to humiliate, to reduce her to a stereotype. Maya's jaw clenches, but her eyes don't waver. She feels the room's eyes on her, the weight of every assumption she's ever faced in college where professors dismissed her insights, in interviews where her degree was questioned. But today, that weight fuels her a fire banked but ready to flare. She sets the tray down, folding her hands in front of her, her posture calm but unyielding. "I understood you," she says, her voice steady, a blade wrapped in silk, "but I'll wait for your next move." The subtle defiance catches Victor off guard. His smirk falters, but he doubles down. "Come on, don't choke now," he says, his tone sharper. "Impress me." The air tightens, the bistro's noise fading to a low hum. Maya's mind races not with doubt, but with clarity. She knows Spanish-Italian and more honed through years of study and a summer in Guatemala working with aid groups. She knows Victor's game too, his need to dominate, to shrink her. But she's not shrinking today. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled, and Maya feels them rising a tide she can't hold back. She thinks of her sister Lena poring over law books, and Jamal sketching in his notebook their futures, her anchor. She thinks of the bistro's owner, Ms. Ellison, who hired her despite her lack of fine dining experience, seeing something in her eyes. Maya straightens her shadow sharp against the wall and meets Victor's gaze. "You'll get your answer," she says, her voice soft but firm. "When the moment's right." The promise hangs a quiet vow, and Victor's smirk twitches, uncertainty creeping in. She turns, heading back to the kitchen, her steps measured, her heart a steady pulse. The bistro's rhythm resumes, but the tension at table 12 lingers, a crack in Victor's facade. In the kitchen, Javier catches her eye, his spatula pausing. "What's with Mr. Big Shot?" he asks, nodding toward the dining room. Maya exhales, her lips curving faintly. "Just another test," she says, but her eyes burn with resolve. Javier nods, tossing a towel over his shoulder. "You're tougher than he thinks," he says. Maya doesn't respond, but her silence speaks volumes, a quiet strength that's carried her through years of sacrifice. Back in the dining room, the jazz shifts to a slower, mournful melody mirroring the storm outside. Maya moves between tables, refilling water, clearing plates, but her mind is on Victor's challenge. She knows what's coming, a moment where his arrogance will meet her truth. The motif of shadows weaves through her steps. Her shadow on the floor, the shadow of prejudice in Victor's words, the shadow of her own power growing sharper. Carlos, the busboy, passes by, his voice low. "You gonna school him?" he asks, a grin tugging at his lips. Maya's eyes flicker with amusement. Maybe she says, but her tone carries weight, a promise to herself. As she clears a nearby table, Victor's voice rises again, now mocking Ethan's latest pitch. "You call that strategy?" He scoffs, and Ethan shrinks, his laugh forced. Maya catches the exchange, her lips pressing into a thin line. She knows men like Victor thrive on control, but she also knows control can crack. The bistro's lights flicker as the storm outside intensifies, and Maya feels the moment approaching, a reckoning dressed in quiet resolve. Her shadow trails her heavy with truths unspoken, and the air hums with the promise of a storm breaking free. The bistro's amber lights flicker as Seattle's rain lashes the windows, the storm outside mirroring the tension within. The dining room hums a tapestry of clinking glasses and murmured conversations, but at table 12 the air is taut, charged with the weight of Victor Langston's challenge. Maya Jefferson, 32, stands poised, her black sneakers rooted to the hardwood, her apron crisp despite the long shift. Her tightly coiled hair catches the chandelier's glow, but her almond eyes burn with a quiet fire fueled by Victor's taunts, racial classist jabs that have piled up like stones. His Spanish phrase, el éxito, es para los fuertes, still hangs between them, a clumsy gauntlet meant to trip her. Maya's heart beats steady, her tray balanced, but inside a storm of her own is breaking free. Victor, 60, leans back, his silver hair slick under the lights, his smirk a blade. The tech CEO's voice carries each word a performance for his colleagues. Ethan, the nervous junior exec. Ms. Caruso, the investor with a guarded gaze. And Mr. Patel, the consultant, glued to his phone. But their attention wavers, frayed by Victor's relentless arrogance. His earlier mockery, "Impress me," has left a crack in the table's dynamic, and Maya feels it a fault line ready to split. She sets a fresh water pitcher down, her movements deliberate, her voice soft. "Anything else for you?" she asks, her eyes locking onto Victor's. He chuckles loud enough to draw glances from nearby tables. "Well," he says, his tone sharp with condescension, "you gonna translate my Spanish or just stand there?" The racial edge in his words cuts deep, a public dare to prove her worth. Ethan's fork pauses, his eyes darting to Maya. Ms. Caruso's lips tighten, her gaze flickering with unease. The bistro's hum dips a hush, settling over the room. Maya's shadow stretches across the floor, long and unyielding, a silent testament to the truths she's carried in college where her insights were dismissed, in aid work where her presence surprised, in this very room where her apron is mistaken for her limit. She sets the tray down, folding her hands in front of her, her posture calm but electric. "I heard you," she says, her voice low, a blade wrapped in silk. "Success is for the strong, you said, but your pronunciation was off and you used the wrong article, el, instead of la for fuerza." The correction lands like a spark, precise and unyielding. Victor's smirk falters, his eyes narrowing, but Maya doesn't stop. The phrase is, "El éxito es para los fuertes," she says, her Spanish flawless, rolling off her tongue with the ease of someone who's lived it. But strength isn't what you think it is. The table falls silent, the bistro's noise fading to a distant hum. Miss Caruso leans forward, her eyes wide. Ethan's jaw drops slightly, his fork forgotten. Victor's face reddens, his fingers tightening around his glass. "Cute," he says, his voice tight. "You memorized a phrase. Big deal." But the room feels smaller now, the air heavy with attention. Maya's eyes don't waver, her voice steady, cutting through his bluster. "I didn't memorize it," she says. "I learned Spanish in Guatemala, working with aid groups, translating for families who'd lost everything. I sat in rooms where words meant food, shelter, or deportation. I learned Italian in college, helping refugees in Rome. I don't practice phrases, I live them." The revelation hits like a thunderclap, silencing the table. Victor's smirk vanishes, his face a mask of shock and shame. Ms. Caruso's hand covers her mouth, her eyes gleaming with respect. Ethan stares, his nervous energy stilled. Mr. Patel looks up from his phone, his eyebrows raised. The bistro's other diners lean in their conversations, paused, drawn to the quiet power in Maya's voice. Her shadow looms larger now, not just on the floor, but in the room, a force that reshapes the air. "You thought you could trip me," she says, her tone even not loud, but piercing. "But I've been climbing steeper hills than your ego my whole life." Victor's mouth opens, then closes, his arrogance crumbling under the weight of her truth. "I didn't," he starts, but his voice falters thin and unconvincing. Maya tilts her head, her eyes unwavering. You didn't think she says her words soft but final. That's the problem. The bistro is silent now, the jazz. A faint whisper, the rain outside a steady drum. Carlos, the busboy, pauses mid-step, his grin subtle but proud. Javier, watching from the kitchen pass, nods, his eyes alight. The owner, Ms. Ellison, a tall woman with graying curls, stands near the host podium. Her arms crossed, her expression one of quiet approval. Maya steps back, her tray in hand, her posture regal despite the apron. "Enjoy your meal," she says, her voice polite but distant, a queen dismissing a courtier. She turns her shadow, trailing her sharp and unyielding. Victor's face burns, his colleagues avoiding his gaze. Ms. Caruso murmurs something in Italian, her tone soft, admiring. Ethan clears his throat, his voice low. "That was... wow," he says. But Victor doesn't respond, his fingers tapping the table, uneven, a man unmoored. In the kitchen, Maya sets the tray down, her breath steady, but her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the release of truth. Javier leans over, his voice gruff. "You just schooled him," he says, a rare smile breaking through. Maya exhales, her lips curving faintly. "Wasn't trying to," she says, but her eyes shine a spark of triumph. Some truths linger waiting to be unveiled, and Maya feels them settling, a weight lifted. She thinks of Lena studying late, and Jamal sketching his dreams. She thinks of the years she's carried her worth in silence, proving it to no one but herself. Today she spoke, and the world listened. Back in the dining room, the bistro's rhythm creeps back, but table 12 is changed. Victor pushes his plate away, his appetite gone. His colleagues eat in silence, their glances heavy with meaning. Maya moves between tables, her steps lighter now, her smile genuine. The motif of shadows weaves through the moment, her shadow on the wall. The shadow of Victor's shattered pride, the shadow of her resilience now radiant. The storm outside rumbles, but inside the air feels clearer, as if Maya's truth has swept through, leaving only clarity in its wake. Victor's challenge was a spark, but Maya's response was a fire, and the bistro will never feel the same. The bistro's amber glow softens as the Seattle rain eases, leaving streaks on the windows that catch the fading light of late afternoon. The dining room hums gently now, the lunch rush giving way to a quieter rhythm, clinking glasses, low laughter, the faint strains of jazz weaving through the air. Maya Jefferson, 32, moves with a steady grace, her black sneakers silent on the hardwood, her apron still crisp despite the long shift. Her tightly coiled hair gleams under the chandeliers, but her almond eyes carry a new light, a quiet triumph born from the moment she dismantled Victor Langston's arrogance. The air at table 12 is heavy, a silent reckoning settling over the group, and Maya feels it a shift in the room's gravity as if her truth has redrawn its boundaries. Victor 60 sits rigid, his silver hair no longer commanding his hands idle on the table. The tech CEO's earlier bravado, his taunts, his clumsy Spanish challenge, lies in ruins exposed by Maya's flawless response, her revelation of a life spent in global aid, her quiet power. His colleagues Ethan the junior exec, Ms. Caruso the investor, and Mr. Patel the consultant avoid his gaze. Their plates half-eaten, their silence louder than words. Victor's face is a mask of discomfort, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on the tablecloth. Maya approaches with the check, her tray balanced, her voice soft but firm. "Whenever you're ready," she says, setting the bill holder down. Her shadow stretches across the floor, no longer heavy but radiant, a testament to the space she's claimed. Victor glances up, his expression fractured, part shame, part something softer, unpracticed. "Maya," he says, his voice low, halting. I was out of line." The admission hangs fragile in the bistro's hum. Ethan's eyes widen. Ms. Caruso's lips part her gaze, softening. Maya pauses, her hands still, her eyes meeting his. "You were," she says, her tone even not cruel, but unyielding. "But I'm not here to hold grudges." The words are simple, but they carry weight, a grace that cuts deeper than anger. Victor nods, his fingers fumbling with the bill holder. "You're..." Something else, he mutters almost to himself and slides a company card inside his hand, lingering as if searching for words he can't find. Maya turns, her steps measured, but the moment lingers, a ripple spreading through the bistro. Other diners who'd watched her stand tall now smile faintly as she passes, their glances warm, respectful. Carlos, the busboy, catches her eye, his grin wide. "You made him eat his words," he whispers. Maya's lips curve, a spark of amusement. "Wasn't the plan," she says, but her eyes shine, a quiet pride settling in her chest. In the kitchen, Javier leans against the counter, his arms crossed. Heard he apologized. He says, his voice gruff but warm. Maya nods, grabbing a glass of water. "Something like that," she says, taking a slow sip, the cold grounding her. Later, as the shift winds down, Ms. Ellison, the bistro's owner, calls Maya to the office, a small room tucked behind the bar. Her graying curls frame a face lined with quiet strength, her eyes sharp but kind. "Got an email from Langston's office," she says, handing Maya a tablet. The message is brief but clear. Victor praises Maya's exceptional talent, offering a contact for his firm's international division. "He's not wrong," Ms. Ellison says, her voice soft. "You're more than this place, Maya." Maya stares at the screen, her breath catching, not from flattery, but from the weight of possibility. "I'll think about it," she says, handing the tablet back, her voice steady but her mind racing. Some truths linger waiting to be unveiled, and this one, a door cracked open, feels like a gift she's not sure she's ready to claim. She steps outside into the early dusk, the city's skyline aglow against the clearing sky. The air is cool, sharp, with the scent of rain-soaked pavement, and Maya breathes it in, her hoodie loose over her shoulders, her hair freed from its bun. The bistro's warmth fades behind her, But the moment she claimed her truth, her power stays a quiet fire in her chest. She thinks of Lena studying late, her law book spread across their small table. Of Jamal sketching in his room, his dreams taking shape. Maya's sacrifices have built their futures, but today she built something for herself too, a reminder that her worth isn't tied to an apron, a degree, or a title, but to the way she carries herself when the world tries to shrink her. The motif of shadows weaves through her thoughts, her shadow on the bistro floor, the shadow of Victor's prejudice, the shadow of her resilience now a beacon. In a nation built on second chances, Maya's victory is not revenge, but grace, a quiet refusal to be diminished. Her truth didn't just silence Victor. It shifted the air, made others see her, made her see herself. She didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. Her power was in her presence, her words, her refusal to flinch. Somewhere, Victor is rethinking the rooms he walks into, not because he wanted to, but because Maya held up a mirror he couldn't ignore. And somewhere others like her, overlooked, underestimated, carry their own truths, waiting for the moment to speak. Maya walks home, her steps light the city's hum wrapping around her like a song. She doesn't tell Lena or Jamal about today. She doesn't need to. She sits at their small table watching Lena highlight a page, hearing Jamal hum in the next room, and feels the weight of her own strength steady and unyielding. Dignity isn't given. It's claimed, held high, when the world looks away. And Maya, with her quiet fire, has claimed hers not for applause, but because it was necessary.